Why do girls seem to gravitate toward confident guys? This is something that literally every guy in his 20s and 30s has wondered about at some point. And before you roll your eyes thinking this is going to be another one of those toxic masculinity rants about being an alpha male or whatever, just stick with me here, because I think we need to have an honest conversation about what confidence actually means and why it matters so much in dating. I've been thinking about this topic a lot lately because I see so many of my friends struggling with this exact thing. They're good dudes. They have their lives together. They're funny and smart. But they can't seem to figure out why they keep striking out with women. And then they see some guy who seems way less qualified getting the girl, and they're like, what the hell is going on here? Sound familiar? The thing is, we've been fed this really warped idea of what confidence looks like, especially in the dating world. Social media has convinced us that confidence means being loud, being cocky, having the perfect body, driving an expensive car, or acting like you don't care about anything. But that's not confidence at all. That's just insecurity wearing a really expensive mask. Let me tell you what actually happened to me that made me understand this whole thing differently. A few years ago, I was at this house party, and there were two guys there who couldn't have been more different. The first guy, let's call him Brad, was everything you'd expect from someone who thinks he's confident. He was loud, constantly talking about his job in finance, name-dropping expensive restaurants he'd been to, and basically trying to dominate every conversation. He was hitting on every girl at the party with these cheesy pickup lines he probably learned from some YouTube guru. Then there was this other guy, Mike, who was just different. He wasn't the loudest person in the room. He wasn't bragging about anything. But there was something about him that just drew people in. He was genuinely interested in what other people had to say. He told these really engaging stories about his travels, and when he talked to women, he actually listened to their responses instead of just waiting for his turn to talk again. Guess who ended up connecting with people that night? It wasn't Brad with all his peacocking and fake bravado. It was Mike, because he had something that Brad was desperately trying to fake. Genuine confidence. So what's the difference? Real confidence isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about being comfortable with who you are, flaws and all. It's about not needing external validation to feel good about yourself. And here's the kicker. Women can smell fake confidence from a mile away. Think about it from their perspective for a second. Women deal with guys trying to impress them constantly. They get hit on by dudes who are putting on an act, trying to be someone they're not, all the time. So when they meet a guy who's just genuinely comfortable in his own skin, who isn't trying to prove anything or put on a show, it's refreshing as hell. But here's where a lot of guys get confused. They think confidence means never showing vulnerability, never admitting you don't know something, or never letting anyone see that you actually care about the outcome. That's not confidence. That's emotional unavailability, and it's exhausting to be around. Real confidence is being able to say, I don't know, when you don't know something. It's being able to admit when you're wrong. It's being comfortable with silence in a conversation. It's being able to show genuine interest in someone without worrying that it makes you seem desperate. It's being yourself even when that self isn't perfect. I remember when I first started understanding this, I was talking to this girl at a coffee shop. The old me would have tried to impress her with some story about my accomplishments, or tried to act like I was too cool to care whether she was interested. But instead, I just talked to her like she was a human being I was genuinely curious about. I asked her about her work, listened to her answers, shared some of my own experiences, and didn't try to turn it into some kind of performance. And you know what? We ended up talking for 2 hours, not because I was the most impressive guy she'd ever met, but because the conversation felt natural and real. She later told me that what she found attractive was that I seemed comfortable with myself and genuinely interested in getting to know her, not just trying to get something from her. This is what women mean when they say they like confident guys. They're not talking about the guy who walks into a room like he owns it and treats everyone else like they're beneath him. They're talking about the guy who walks into a room and is just comfortable being there, who can engage with people naturally, who doesn't need to put others down to build himself up. But here's the thing that nobody talks about. Confidence isn't something you just wake up with one day. It's something you build over time through experiences, through facing your fears, through learning to be okay with failure, and through developing a genuine sense of self-worth that doesn't depend on what other people think of you. A lot of guys think they can fake it till they make it, and while there's some truth to that, you can't build real confidence on a foundation of lies. If you're pretending to be someone you're not, you're always going to be worried about being found out. That anxiety will show through no matter how good your act is. So how do you actually build genuine confidence? It starts with getting comfortable with yourself. And I mean really comfortable. With your strengths, your weaknesses, your weird hobbies, your insecurities, all of it. You don't have to love everything about yourself, but you need to accept it and own it. I used to be embarrassed about the fact that I'm really into board games. I thought it made me seem nerdy and unattractive. So I'd hide it when I was talking to women, or I'd try to make it sound cooler than it was. But you know what happened when I started just owning it? Women found it endearing. Not all of them, but the ones who mattered did. Because passion is attractive, even if the thing you're passionate about isn't traditionally cool. Confidence also comes from having a life that you're genuinely excited about. If you're not happy with where you are in life, if you don't have goals you're working toward, if you don't have interests that genuinely engage you, then you're going to struggle to project confidence because deep down you won't feel confident. This doesn't mean you need to have everything figured out. Nobody does. But you need to be actively engaged in building a life that feels meaningful to you, whether that's advancing in your career, learning new skills, traveling, building relationships. Whatever it is that makes you feel like you're growing and moving forward. And here's something that might surprise you. Confident guys aren't afraid to show that they care. They're not playing games or trying to act disinterested. If they like someone, they show it. They ask for what they want. They're willing to risk rejection because they know that rejection isn't a reflection of their worth as a person. I see so many guys who think that caring too much or showing too much interest is unattractive. They've been told that they need to play hard to get, that they should wait 3 days before texting back, that they should act like they have a million other options, even when they don't. But all this does is create distance and confusion. Confident guys are direct. If they want to see someone again, they say so. If they had a good time, they express it. They're not worried about seeming too eager because they know that genuine enthusiasm is attractive, not desperate. But there's a difference between being enthusiastic and being needy. Neediness comes from a place of insecurity. You need this person to validate you, to make you feel complete, to solve your problems. Enthusiasm comes from a place of abundance. You're excited about this person because they add something positive to your already fulfilling life. This is why working on yourself first is so important. If you're looking for someone else to make you happy, to give your life meaning, to fix your insecurities, then you're going to come across as needy no matter how hard you try to hide it. But if you're building a life that you genuinely enjoy, then you're looking for someone to share that life with, not someone to complete it for you. Another thing about confident guys, they're not threatened by other people's success or happiness. They don't need to put others down to feel good about themselves. They can celebrate their friends' wins. They can handle it when someone disagrees with them, and they don't see every interaction as a competition. I used to be that guy who felt like I had to prove I was the smartest person in the room, or the funniest, or the most successful. But all that did was make me exhausting to be around. Real confidence is being secure enough in yourself that you don't need to constantly prove your worth to others. This shows up in dating in really obvious ways. Confident guys aren't threatened when the woman they're with talks to other men. They're not constantly checking her phone or getting jealous when she mentions male friends. They trust themselves and they trust their partner because they know that if someone doesn't want to be with them, trying to control them isn't going to change that. Now, I want to address something that I think confuses a lot of guys. There's this idea that women like bad boys and that being a good guy means you'll finish last. But I think this misses the point entirely. Women aren't attracted to guys who treat them badly. They're attracted to guys who seem confident and self-assured. The problem is that sometimes the guys who appear most confident are actually just selfish or emotionally unavailable. The bad boy thing is usually just confidence mixed with a lack of neediness. These guys aren't constantly seeking approval. They're not bending over backward to please everyone, and they're not afraid to disagree or set boundaries. But you can have all of those qualities while still being a genuinely good person who treats people with respect. In fact, I'd argue that the most attractive combination is confidence plus kindness. Being strong enough to stand up for yourself and what you believe in, but caring enough to consider how your actions affect others. Being secure enough in yourself that you don't need to put others down, but confident enough to not let people walk all over you. This is something I had to learn the hard way. I used to think that being nice meant agreeing with everything, never causing conflict, and always putting other people's needs before my own. But that's not kindness. That's people-pleasing. And it comes from insecurity, not confidence. Real kindness comes from a place of strength. It's choosing to be considerate and caring because that's who you want to be, not because you're afraid of what will happen if you're not. It's being able to say no when you need to disagree when you think someone is wrong, and to stand up for yourself when necessary, all while still treating people with respect. Let me give you a practical example of what this looks like in dating. Let's say you're on a first date and the woman suggests going to a restaurant that you really don't like. The insecure response would be to just go along with it even though you're not excited about it, because you're afraid that disagreeing will make her not like you. The overcompensating response would be to shut down her suggestion and insist on going somewhere else without considering her preferences. The confident response would be to acknowledge her suggestion, maybe ask what she likes about that place, and then suggest an alternative that you think you'd both enjoy. You're not just going along with something you don't want to do, but you're also not dismissing her input. You're engaging in a collaborative decision-making process, like two adults who both have preferences and opinions. This might seem like a small thing, but it's actually huge. It shows that you have opinions and preferences of your own, that you're not just trying to please her at all costs, but that you also care about her experience and want to find something that works for both of you. That's attractive because it suggests that you'd be a good partner, someone who can advocate for themselves while still being considerate of others. Confidence also shows up in how you handle rejection or setbacks. Confident guys don't take rejection personally because they understand that compatibility is about fit, not worth. If someone doesn't want to date you, it doesn't mean you're not good enough. It just means you're not right for each other. I remember getting rejected by this girl I really liked, and my first instinct was to think about all the ways I could have been better, all the things I should have said differently, all the reasons why I wasn't good enough for her. But then I realized that this kind of thinking was actually really arrogant. It assumes that if I had just been perfect enough, I could have made her like me, regardless of what she actually wanted or needed in a partner. The truth is, attraction and compatibility are complex and personal. Someone might not be interested in you for reasons that have nothing to do with your worth as a person. Maybe they're not ready for a relationship. Maybe they're interested in someone else. Maybe you just don't have the right chemistry. Maybe you want different things in life. None of these things are a reflection of your value as a human being. Confident guys understand this, so they can handle rejection gracefully. They don't get angry or bitter. They don't try to convince the person to change their mind, and they don't take it as evidence that they're fundamentally flawed. They just accept it and move on. This is actually really attractive to women because it shows emotional maturity and resilience. Nobody wants to date someone who's going to fall apart every time things don't go their way. Women want to be with someone who can handle life's ups and downs with grace and perspective. But here's something that I think is really important to understand. Confidence isn't about never feeling insecure or never having doubts. Everyone feels insecure sometimes. Everyone has moments where they question themselves or worry about what other people think. The difference is that confident people don't let those feelings control their behavior. They feel the insecurity, acknowledge it, and then act according to their values and goals anyway. They don't pretend they never have doubts, but they don't let those doubts paralyze them either. I still have moments where I feel insecure about something. Maybe I'm worried I said something stupid, or I'm comparing myself to someone else, or I'm doubting whether I'm good enough at something. But I've learned to recognize these feelings for what they are. Temporary emotional states that don't necessarily reflect reality, and I don't let them dictate my actions. This is something you can practice and get better at. When you notice yourself feeling insecure or seeking validation, pause and ask yourself what you would do if you felt completely confident in that moment. Then do that thing, even if you don't feel confident. Over time, this builds real confidence because you prove to yourself that you can handle situations even when you're not feeling your best. Another aspect of confidence that's really important in dating is being comfortable with who you are sexually and romantically. This doesn't mean being aggressive or pushy. It means being honest about your desires and intentions without being ashamed of them. A lot of guys are afraid to show sexual interest because they've been told that it's inappropriate or that they should hide their attraction. But there's a difference between being respectful and being ashamed of your sexuality. Confident guys can express interest in a way that's clear but not pressuring, enthusiastic but not desperate. They're not afraid to flirt, to create sexual tension, or to make their intentions known. But they do it in a way that gives the other person space to respond however they want. They're not trying to trick someone into liking them or manipulating them into a situation they don't want to be in. This comes back to that idea of being direct and honest about what you want. If you're interested in someone romantically, show it. If you find someone attractive, let them know in an appropriate way. Don't try to sneak into a relationship by pretending you just want to be friends when you actually want something more. Women appreciate honesty and directness because it allows them to make informed decisions about what they want. Nobody likes feeling like they're being manipulated or like someone is hiding their true intentions. Now let's talk about something that I think trips up a lot of guys, the difference between confidence and arrogance. Because while confidence is attractive, arrogance is definitely not. Arrogance is thinking you're better than other people. It's needing to prove your superiority, putting others down to build yourself up, and being unable to admit when you're wrong. Arrogant people are exhausting to be around because everything becomes about them and their ego. Confidence, on the other hand, is being secure in your own worth without needing to compare yourself to others. Confident people can admit when they don't know something, they can learn from others, and they can celebrate other people's successes without feeling threatened. The key difference is that arrogance comes from insecurity. You're so worried about not being good enough that you overcompensate by acting like you're better than everyone else. Confidence comes from genuine self-acceptance. You know your strengths and weaknesses, and you're okay with both. In dating, this shows up in really obvious ways. Arrogant guys talk about themselves constantly. They don't ask questions about the other person. They try to impress with stories about their accomplishments, and they can't handle it when someone disagrees with them or isn't immediately impressed. Confident guys are genuinely curious about other people. They ask questions and actually listen to the answers. They share things about themselves, but they're not trying to prove anything. They're just being authentic. They can handle disagreement and even criticism without getting defensive. I used to be much more on the arrogant side, especially when I was feeling insecure. I'd try to impress women by talking about my job, my achievements, places I'd traveled, whatever I thought would make me seem impressive. But all this did was make me seem like I was trying too hard and wasn't actually interested in them as people. The shift happened when I started focusing more on being genuinely curious about others rather than trying to impress them. Instead of thinking, how can I make this person think I'm amazing, I started thinking, what can I learn about this person that's interesting? And you know what? The conversations became so much better, and people seemed way more drawn to me. This brings me to another crucial point about confidence that I think gets overlooked. Confident guys are comfortable with silence and don't feel the need to fill every moment with chatter. They're not constantly performing or trying to entertain. They can just be present in a moment without feeling like they need to prove their worth through constant talking. I remember being on dates where I felt like I had to be on the entire time. Like I was some kind of entertainer whose job it was to make sure there was never a dull moment. But that's exhausting for everyone involved. Real confidence is being comfortable enough with yourself that you don't need to constantly perform. Some of the best conversations I've had with women have included comfortable silences where we were just enjoying each other's company, maybe looking around at our surroundings, or just thinking about what the other person had said. Those moments of quiet connection can be more intimate than hours of nonstop talking. Now let's talk about something that I think is really important, but doesn't get discussed enough. Confident guys have boundaries. They know what they will and won't accept in their relationships, and they're not afraid to communicate those boundaries clearly. This doesn't mean being controlling or demanding. It means knowing your own values and standards and being willing to walk away from situations that don't align with them. It means not compromising on the things that are truly important to you just to avoid conflict or keep someone around. I used to be terrible at this. I would accept behavior from women that I wasn't okay with because I was afraid that setting boundaries would make them leave. But you know what? When you don't have boundaries, people lose respect for you, and the relationship becomes unhealthy anyway. For example, if someone consistently cancels plans at the last minute, a confident person would address that directly rather than just accepting it and building resentment. They might say something like, "Hey, I understand that things come up sometimes, but when plans get canceled last minute regularly, it makes me feel like my time isn't valued. Can we talk about how to handle scheduling better?" That's not being controlling. That's being clear about your needs and giving the other person a chance to respond. If they're willing to work on it, great. If they're not, then you have information about whether this is someone you want to continue investing time in. Boundaries also apply to how you let people treat you in general. Confident guys don't accept being disrespected, whether that's being talked down to, having their time wasted, or being treated as an option rather than a priority. But they address these issues directly and calmly rather than getting angry or passive-aggressive about it. This is attractive because it shows that you value yourself and that you'd be a good partner who can communicate about problems rather than just letting resentment build up. Women want to be with someone who can advocate for themselves because it suggests they'll also be able to advocate for the relationship when needed. Let me share something that really changed my perspective on all of this. I was talking to my friend Sarah about dating, and she said something that stuck with me. She said, "The most attractive thing about my boyfriend isn't that he's the most handsome guy I've ever met, or that he has the most money or the best job. It's that he seems genuinely happy with his life, and being with me adds to that happiness, rather than being necessary for it." That really hit me because it perfectly captures what confidence looks like in a relationship context. It's not about being perfect or having everything figured out. It's about being someone who is actively engaged in building a life they enjoy, and who sees a romantic relationship as something that enhances that life rather than something that completes it. This is why the advice to work on yourself first isn't just some cliche, it's actually practical guidance. If you're not happy with your own life, if you don't have goals you're excited about, if you don't have interests that engage you, then you're going to look to a romantic relationship to provide all of those things. And that's a lot of pressure to put on another person. But when you're building a life that genuinely excites you, when you have goals you're working toward, and interests that you're passionate about, then you're looking for someone to share that life with, rather than someone to create it for you. That's a much more attractive proposition. This doesn't mean you need to have everything perfect before you start dating. Nobody has everything figured out, and waiting until you're ready is often just another form of avoidance. But it does mean being actively engaged in your own growth and happiness, rather than waiting for someone else to provide those things for you. Confident guys also understand that rejection and failure are just part of life, not evidence of their inadequacy. They don't take every setback as proof that they're not good enough. They see them as information about what works and what doesn't, and they adjust accordingly. I remember when I first started approaching women in person instead of relying on dating apps, I got rejected a lot. And I mean a lot. But instead of taking each rejection as evidence that I was fundamentally unattractive or unworthy, I started looking at them as practice. Each interaction taught me something about how to be more natural, more engaging, or more authentic. The guys who struggle the most with dating are often the ones who can't handle any form of rejection or failure. They take every no personally, they catastrophize every awkward moment, and they give up after a few bad experiences. But confident guys understand that dating is a numbers game to some extent, and that finding the right person often requires meeting a lot of wrong people first. This resilience is attractive because it shows emotional maturity and persistence. Women want to be with someone who can handle life's challenges without falling apart, someone who can bounce back from setbacks and keep moving forward. But here's something important. Confidence doesn't mean being emotionally unavailable or pretending that nothing affects you. Confident guys feel their emotions fully. They just don't let those emotions control their behavior or define their self-worth. If they're sad about something, they feel sad. If they're excited about something, they show excitement. If they're nervous about something, they acknowledge the nervousness. They don't try to be stoic robots who never feel anything. They just don't let their emotions make their decisions for them. This emotional authenticity is really attractive because it makes you seem like a real person rather than someone who's putting on an act. Women want to connect with someone genuine, not someone who's trying to project some image of perfection. I think one of the biggest mistakes guys make is thinking that confidence means never showing vulnerability. But actually, the ability to be vulnerable in appropriate ways is a sign of confidence, not weakness. It shows that you're secure enough in yourself to let someone see the real you, flaws and all. This might mean admitting when you're nervous about something, sharing a fear or insecurity you have, or talking about a time when you failed at something. Obviously, you don't want to dump all your problems on someone you just met, but being able to show some depth and humanity makes you much more relatable and attractive. I remember being on a date where the woman asked me about my biggest fear, and instead of trying to come up with something that would make me sound tough or impressive, I just told her the truth. That I was afraid of not living up to my potential, of getting to the end of my life and feeling like I wasted it. It was a vulnerable thing to share, but it led to this really deep conversation about our goals and values that brought us much closer together. Confident guys also don't try to be everything to everyone. They understand that they're not going to be compatible with every woman they meet, and they're okay with that. They'd rather be authentically themselves and attract people who genuinely like them than try to be some generic version of what they think women want. This means being honest about your interests, your values, your goals, and your personality, even if you think some people might not find those things attractive. Because the people who do find them attractive are the ones you actually want to be with anyway. For example, if you're really into video games, don't hide that or try to make it sound cooler than it is. Own it. Talk about what you love about gaming. Share funny stories from your gaming experiences. Maybe even suggest a gaming-related date if it feels appropriate. Some women won't be into it, but the ones who are, or who at least appreciate your passion for something, are the ones worth pursuing. This authenticity is attractive because it shows confidence in who you are, and it also helps filter for compatibility early on. There's no point in trying to attract someone by pretending to be someone you're not, because eventually the real you is going to come out anyway. Let me talk about something that I think is really important but often gets misunderstood: the role of physical appearance in confidence. Obviously, taking care of yourself physically is important, but confident guys don't obsess over their appearance or think that they need to look like a male model to be attractive. They understand that attraction is about much more than just physical appearance. They take care of their health, they dress in a way that makes them feel good, they practice good hygiene, but they don't base their self-worth on how they look or spend all their time worrying about whether they're attractive enough. I used to be really insecure about my appearance. I would spend way too much time in front of the mirror, constantly comparing myself to other guys and assuming that any rejection I got was because I wasn't good-looking enough. But that kind of thinking is actually really unattractive because it makes you seem insecure and self-obsessed. The shift happened when I started focusing more on how I felt than on how I looked. I started exercising because it made me feel strong and energetic, not because I was trying to achieve some perfect physique. I started dressing in clothes that I felt comfortable and confident in, rather than trying to follow some fashion trend that didn't feel like me. And you know what? When I stopped obsessing over my appearance and started focusing on feeling good in my own skin, people responded to me much better. Because confidence is attractive, and you can't feel confident if you're constantly worried about how you look. This doesn't mean that appearance doesn't matter at all. Of course it does to some extent. But it matters much less than most guys think, and obsessing over it actually makes you less attractive, not more. Confident guys also understand the importance of emotional intelligence in relationships. They can read social cues, they're aware of how their behavior affects others, and they can navigate complex emotional situations with grace. This means being able to tell when someone is uncomfortable and adjusting your behavior accordingly. It means being able to have difficult conversations without getting defensive or aggressive. It means being able to support someone when they're going through a tough time without trying to fix everything or make it about you. Emotional intelligence is incredibly attractive because it suggests that you'd be a good partner who can handle the ups and downs of a real relationship. Women want to be with someone who can understand and respond to their emotional needs, not someone who's going to shut down or get overwhelmed every time things get complicated. I had to learn this the hard way. I used to think that being logical and rational about everything was the way to go, and I would get frustrated when women wanted to talk about feelings or when situations got emotionally complex. But I realized that dismissing emotions or trying to logic your way through everything actually shows a lack of intelligence, not an abundance of it. Learning to be comfortable with emotions, both my own and others, made me a much better partner and a much more attractive person in general. It allowed me to connect with people on a deeper level and to handle relationship challenges much more effectively. Now let's address something that I think causes a lot of confusion: the difference between confidence and neediness. Because I see a lot of guys who think that showing any interest or enthusiasm makes them seem needy, so they try to act disinterested or play hard to get. But neediness isn't about showing interest. It's about the motivation behind that interest. Needy behavior comes from a place of insecurity and desperation. You need this person to validate you, to make you feel complete, to solve your problems. You're not interested in them as a person, so much as you're interested in what they can do for you. Confident interest, on the other hand, comes from a place of genuine curiosity and attraction. You're interested in this person because you enjoy their company, you find them attractive, you want to get to know them better, but you don't need them to complete you or validate your worth. The difference shows up in how you behave. Needy guys are constantly seeking reassurance. They get anxious when they don't hear back right away. They try to rush the relationship forward, and they get upset when things don't go exactly as they hoped. Confident guys can show interest and enthusiasm while still maintaining their own life and emotional stability. They're excited about someone, but they're not dependent on that person for their happiness. This is why having a fulfilling life outside of dating is so important. If your entire sense of self-worth depends on whether someone likes you back, then you're going to come across as needy no matter how hard you try to hide it. But if you have other sources of fulfillment and happiness, then you can be genuinely interested in someone without being desperate. As we wrap this up, I want to talk about something that I think is really important. Confidence is not a destination, it's a practice. You don't just become confident one day and then stay that way forever. It's something you have to work on continuously, and everyone has moments where they feel less confident than others. The goal isn't to never feel insecure or to always know exactly what to do in every situation. The goal is to develop the skills and mindset that allow you to handle uncertainty and challenges with grace, to be authentic even when it's scary, and to maintain your sense of self-worth even when things don't go your way. This is something you can practice in all areas of your life, not just dating. Every time you speak up in a meeting when you're nervous, every time you try something new even though you might fail, every time you set a boundary even though it might cause conflict, you're building confidence. And here's the thing. Women can tell when a guy is genuinely confident versus when he's just putting on an act. Real confidence has a different energy to it. It's calm and steady rather than loud and flashy. It's secure rather than defensive. It's authentic rather than performative. So, if you want to be more attractive to women, don't try to fake confidence or copy what you think confident behavior looks like. Work on actually becoming more confident by building a life you're excited about, developing skills you're proud of, setting and maintaining boundaries, practicing emotional intelligence, and learning to be comfortable with who you are. The irony is that the more you focus on becoming genuinely confident for your own sake, the more attractive you become to others. Because confidence isn't really about dating at all. It's about being comfortable in your own skin and engaged with your own life. And that's attractive to everyone, not just potential romantic partners. Look, I know this isn't the quick fix that a lot of guys are looking for. It would be easier if I could just give you a list of pickup lines or tell you to hit the gym and buy some expensive clothes. But real confidence takes time to develop, and there's no shortcut to becoming genuinely comfortable with yourself. But here's what I can promise you. The work is worth it. Not just because it will make you more attractive to women, but because it will make your entire life better. You'll have better friendships, you'll be more successful in your career, you'll be happier with yourself, and you'll be able to handle whatever life throws at you with more grace and resilience. And when you do meet someone you want to be with, you'll be able to show up as your authentic self rather than some performance of who you think you should be. You'll be able to build a real connection based on genuine compatibility rather than trying to trick someone into liking a fake version of you. That's what confidence really is. The ability to be yourself, fully and authentically, regardless of the outcome. And that's what women find attractive. Not the guy who's trying the hardest to impress them, but the guy who's comfortable enough with himself that he doesn't need to try so hard. So start there. Work on becoming someone you're genuinely proud to be. Develop interests that excite you, set goals that motivate you, build relationships that fulfill you, and learn to be comfortable with all aspects of yourself. The dating success will follow naturally, but more importantly, you'll have built a life that you actually enjoy living. And remember, confidence isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about being okay with being imperfect and figuring things out as you go. It's about being brave enough to be vulnerable, strong enough to set boundaries, and secure enough to let people see who you really are. That's the kind of confidence that's truly attractive, and it's something that every single one of you can develop if you're willing to put in the work. So stop trying to fake it, stop looking for shortcuts, and start building the real thing. Your future self and your future relationships will thank you for it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.